2.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nixo. We are EatStaker, and we're hosting the Rocket Pool team today for community call number 40. So I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves. But EatStaker is just generally here to support solo stakers, home staking, anything that creates new home stakers, anything that creates education around home staking. And Rocket Pool is a favorite of ours. Everybody knows what Rocket Pool is a favorite of ours because they've created so many new node operators over the lifespan of the beacon chain. So if we could go around and sort of introduce everybody from the Rocket Pool team, let's start with Darcius.
Hey guys, thanks for having us too, Nixo, by the way. Always a pleasure to drop by Exchequer events. I'm Dave, aka Darcius, the founder of Rocket Pool. All right, pass it on to Langus.
Hello, thank you again, Nixo and team. So yes, I'm Darren Langley, or Langers, as I'm affectionately known, and I'm the general manager of the Rocket Pool core team. I think we'll go.
Hello. Yeah, I'm here. Why not? Thanks, guys, for hosting us. I'm Kane, the senior solidity engineer for Rocket Pool. Who else we got on
I'll
here?
go next. So you're great to be here. I'm Mav. I also have two names, also known as Nick, and I do marketing and community for Rocket Pool. Over to you, Grant.
Hi, everyone. Thanks again. Grant, and we're grant, whatever, ecosystem and BD stuff. Thanks for having us.
Hey guys, T-Pan here. I'm the junior dev here at Rocket Pool.
Awesome. And we also have some prominent members of the Rocket Pool community here. We've got Jasper, Whack, and Patches. Jasper, you may know I don't know, how would you introduce yourself, Jasper?
I like to write stuff about Rocket Pool and Ethereum. I think that's my primarily thing.
And Whack, he hosts a YouTube channel about Rocket Pool. And we've got Patches, who I think everybody from the Rocket Pool community has interacted with at one point or another, if they're not a genius at networking and setting up. And then from EatStaker here, we've got me, Remy, and we've got Patricio here too. Hey, Patricio.
Hello, hello.
Love the shirt. Okay, so today we're here because Rocket Pool is getting an upgrade. It's called the Houston upgrade, and maybe somebody wants to volunteer from the Rocket Pool team to tell us what this upgrade means. Why is Houston just kind of general overview? Why is this a big deal? When was the last upgrade? And what's high level? What's in this one?
Langus, do you want to take this one, or you want me to do it? I'm happy to do it.
I can do it if you want. I don't remember when the last
April last year, I think. Yeah.
April. There you go. Thank you.
That was Atlas. Yeah.
Thank you. So Houston. Houston's a big deal. So the naming of Houston is as Jasper pointed out to me the other day, is pretty good because a major feature of Houston is giving our protocol DAO on-chain power. Now, that's one thing that we've kind of aimed to do from the very beginning. Decentralized governance is not just a buzzword for us. It's actually something that we feel very, very strongly about, and something that we've been building up over time. So a little while ago, we released governance phase 0, which kind of put a bit of structure around the governance within Rocket Pool, and around that, like kind of coral building around a kind of a structure, the protocol DAO has kind of formed around that. The reason why we didn't give the protocol DAO on-chain power at that point was that it just needed to be a mature organization to be able to take kind of control. So so that's what's kind of happened. The protocol DAO has kind of like matured over time, and now it's like a full-on organization with management committees, treasuries, and treasurers, and voting and delegates and everything. So it's absolutely amazing to kind of like see that progress over time. But what Houston does is actually makes that really real. So at the moment, the protocol DAO vote on Snapshot, and they essentially signal their intent. And then the team execute some of those actions for the behest of the community. But with this change, the protocol DAO will be able to execute that themselves. So things like changing settings, things like treasury spends, managing. There's a new committee called a new council called the Security Council, so they can elect members of the Security Council, and yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff. So that's kind of that's going to be amazing, and something that we've been working towards for a long time. So that's a huge kind of part of Houston. The other part is a little bit more subtle, but has a big impact, and that is it has two of these features. One is called stake ETH on behalf of, and one is an RPL withdrawal address. And the combination of those two features mean that we can kind of separate out RPL and ETH a little bit. There are actually a number of benefits to it. Currently, the node operator actually has to take custody of the ETH and the RPL that they stake as of kind of today, pre-Houston. But post-Houston, they won't need to take custody of those funds. And so there's two things that happen because of that. First of all, the two parties could be different parties, or actually the three parties could actually be three different parties. There's still trust involved in that kind of transaction, but it makes it a lot easier to separate those roles and have that. So there's some exciting integrations that are on the cards because of that. Some interesting partnerships and that sort of thing that will come out of that. There's also the fact that larger players don't really necessarily want to give millions of dollars worth of ETH to their DevOps people, and so that means that these features actually help that situation in that they don't need to take custody of those funds. But things like NodeSet becomes possible. So NodeSet is a new protocol that's being built on top of Rocket Pool that utilizes a lot of the node operators that we have today, the 3,000 node operators that we have today, to essentially stake more ETH and to scale Rocket Pool. So although those two features are actually quite small, they have quite a large impact because they open up the different possibilities, different actors within Rocket Pool, but also give us some way of scaling in between now and when we release Saturn. Sorry, that was quite a long-winded.
Cool. So there's a lot in there. Matt, did you want to add something? You look like you wanted to add something.
I was just going to add, that Dr. Doofus in trading summed it up very well. So his explanation is that Houston is sort of like puberty for the protocol.
I like that. That made me laugh. Yeah.
That's classic Dr. Doofus.
So one of the things I wanted to sort of showcase was Rocket Pool is known in the entire Ethereum community for its commitment to decentralization, and sometimes that's also been a hindrance to you guys because decentralization also means slow, like slow progress. And so I wanted to talk about like for a second how this really differs from other DAOs. Like one of the things that is really special about this is that a lot of other DAOs, a lot of other protocols, like in staking or not in staking, function with a DAO. And a lot of the times what ends up happening is that it's the the team, the devs, some whales who own most of the token. And so what ends up happening is it's 2 or 3 people who run all the votes in that. And so I think it's really cool that you guys have sort of built out this whole structure and this whole functioning ecosystem within the DAO. So I want to ask more about the PDAO. So how many people are involved in the PDAO? Like, are any of the Rocket Pool team involved in the PDAO, or is it just community members? How many people are active who are like the key players in there? Are there key players?
Yeah,
Yes.
so that's actually
Okay,
a
go.
really good question. Yeah, I'll start. Like, it's, yeah, so that's actually a really good question. So yeah, we did want to avoid the obvious pitfalls which exist with pretty much all DAOs from my point of view currently. So a lot of them operate on token weight. Like you mentioned, you know, you have your VC capture that come in with their token share and will basically control the protocol under the guise of it being truly decentralized or operating under a DAO. And really, it's just behind kind of scenes for a couple of people making the calls. So yeah, the original intent for the protocol DAO when we launched was to be exactly as now, have committed people who are running the actual protocol, make the decisions for the protocol. So you can't just hold tokens, sit back, call it a day. Like you can currently with a lot of DAOs, you actually need to be running mini pools, and that requires a lot of capital upfront, as well as your staked RPL. So that actually means if you're participating in the protocol, you can have a say in the protocol to a certain degree. So your amount of your kind of weight behind your votes, the way they currently operate, is basically determined on the amount of RPL staked, which also correlates to the amount of validators you are running. So obviously, if you're very, very into the protocol and you're running a lot of validators, you have a tremendous amount of capital, both ETH and RPL on the line. You want to make decisions that are in the protocol's best interests. And that's exactly what we wanted to kind of achieve from the outset. We can't really say who the players are in the protocol because we are permissionless and trustless to for that. So anyone can join. We don't require KYC or anything like that. So it'll basically come down to the people who will basically represent the protocol the best through their kind of staked RPL, and also if they operate as a delegate. So we do have the opportunity for, you know, if you're running a node, you can delegate to another node operator who might also be, you know, a big player as such as well. But they also might not be. They could be a regular Joe within the Rocket Pool community who's put in a lot of work and whatnot. And then through that work has obviously captured a lot of trust from the other node operators that they will make decisions based on the protocol's best interest. So the whole thing kind of revolves around making sure decisions made are done through a decentralized mechanism and in the protocol's best interest from the kind of outset. So, Langus, there's probably a million things I've missed.
Yeah, that's really good. So I think the only other thing I'd add is we're very, very lucky in the sense that because we're quite an old project, so since 2016, because we're quite an old project, we've managed to accumulate a large number of thought leaders kind of under our protocol. And that's probably for 2 reasons. The first reason is because of longevity. The other reason is that we kind of like, we've managed to group together a lot of people who really care about Ethereum and about Ethereum staking. And so they become kind of like thought leaders within the space. And I think that's where DAOs get really interesting, is when these thought leaders kind of emerge and start to drive the protocol forward. I would say that there are, you know, there's a good few hundred. I'd say in terms of, there's probably maybe 150 really active community members, and then there's probably like 500 really kind of like talkative, vocal community members. But within the DAO itself, effectively there's 3,000 node operators. So that's kind of how it kind of onions out.
One thing I would want to throw out there is that Rocket Pool is especially unique in that we use a quadratic scaling function on our RPL stake. And this is not something that most DAOs can do. So in most DAOs who use raw token voting, things like quadratically scaling voting power are very easy to manipulate, and it ends up
Jasper,
defaulting.
what is it?
Sure.
Sorry, what does it mean to quadratically?
Right. So imagine you had 4 RPL instead of 4 effective RPL stake. Instead of having 4 voting power, you actually have 1/2 the square root. So you have 1 voting power. And this essentially it directly mitigates the voting power of whales in favor of smallholders in the protocol. So your 1 vote remains 1 at 1, but at 4, it's still surprisingly 1. So it's the nature of the quadratic scaling mitigates power in the hands of large token holders, which means that despite some people having substantially large nodes, decision making is very, very decentralized and has been since the start of the protocol.
You also specifically asked about whether the team is on the PDAO, and to answer that question, the team has no power outside that system. So the only power the team has in the PDAO is the power they have from also being a node operator or being a delegate in that same system as everyone else. So the team doesn't receive any sort of privileged power in that DAO.
Wait, so
There's
it's sort of
never
like
been-
operating as a civilian within that protocol.
That's right.
There's never been a vote that's been dominated by a small handful of wallets. Due to the nature of the scaling, every vote has to have a decent turnout and is usually very decentralized.
Jasper, I assume that you're actively involved in this. How many people do you usually see voting, and how many like decision makers end up being involved in like a vote?
In terms of the final vote going into snapshot, low hundreds. In terms of people involved with the governance decision-making process, it depends on like how contentious that topic is. Something like the P ETH versus N ETH debate, hundreds of people. It was really in the weeds. It was just like a civil war in Rocket Pool, and it brought out everyone. But then there's sometimes like
I always say at conferences when I'm talking to people, we need more sociologists to come, and the first thing they need to do is study the Rocket Pool community.
Yeah, we speed ran DAOs.
There's one thing to pay attention to as well, Jasper, just to add to what you were saying, that we do have turnout in the low 100s, potentially for votes, around 150 normally, but a lot of the people who vote have votes delegated to them. So I have dozens of people delegating their votes to me, Valdorf, Joe, who was previously a team member. We are 3 of the biggest delegates, and between us, we actually have around 40% of quorum between the 3 of us, but each of us have dozens of people delegating their votes to us. So that is something to pay attention to, because just because there's 100 people voting doesn't mean that they're representing just 100 people. They're actually representing potentially thousands of people.
Just for reference, the last vote had 288.
Yeah, I am delegating my vote to a person on this call because I can't pay attention to all of the votes that happen. But it's really awesome to hear that so many people are participating in every vote.
One thing about the delegation system as well, which I think is quite important, is and actually this goes through into the on-chain voting system as well, is that your delegate may vote, but you're not locked into their vote. So essentially, you delegate vote, as you said, because you're lazy, or because you can't pay attention. You delegate your vote, which is perfectly reasonable, by the way, to somebody else. But if you decide that that's not, they voted in a way that you don't accept, or you disagree with, then you can actually override their vote. And so you can do that. I'm like 99% sure you can do that on Snapshot, but you can also do that. You can definitely do that on the on-chain the on-chain governance system. So if a delegate votes a particular way and you don't like it in the second week of the voting, you can actually override their vote. Some more information about how all that works is coming up very soon.
Okay. Sorry, my headphones cut out for a minute because they're dying. But that's a feature that's live right now.
when so it is for Snapshot, and for the on-chain voting that will go live with Houston, it's part of that as well.
Sweet. That's really cool to hear. We have 7 minutes till the upgrade hits. Why do the upgrades always hit at the same time?
Because it's convenient.
Because it's good prime day for us. Yeah.
Do we expect to see anything when that upgrade goes live? Is there anything to look for? Is there anything that like node operators can look at?
No, I'm not sure. Does this one have a thing? I don't think it does it. I'm not sure
No
if
app
Pretty
for
sure
that?
it does.
But
Yeah.
the only I'll be doing some verification checks. I might be able to share some of those. No, there's not actually very much to look at with this one.
Is Ken
Okay,
gonna
cool.
try to ape in a stake ETH on behalf and be the first person like he tried to do with the first mini pool?
Absolutely.
Wait, why am I robot next though? Is my mic sounds okay, right? Okay.
Yeah, it's a bit scratchy.
Bit crunchy.
Okay. I think it's
We'll do that. Do I sound better now? Okay, great. I wanted to hear more about the thing that enables node set, and like are there going to be other protocols that come in, other things that come in to sort of rival node set? Are there going to be other interested parties there?
Yeah, I think there's already another one that's in the works. Wack is looking surprised, but I know you know this one. Yeah, so I know there's at least one other that is kind of being looked at or built. So yeah, it'll be interesting. And there's probably other, once the news filters through that this is possible. There may well be others that come online as well that are kind of more outside of the Rocket Pool community and by third parties.
Okay. And I know is liquidity an issue there with getting people to actually like use those products?
Yeah, I mean, those products need to kind of build up and kind of attract attention, but also it depends on how they work. So some of them, if they're kind of like token based and they have tokens on top of this thing, then yeah, liquidity is an issue. But if it works in different ways, then it depends. But yeah, they will need to kind of like build up.
Okay, cool. All right. Do we have anything else to talk about in this upgrade before I start asking you about Saturn?
Oh, there's also
4 minutes
sorry.
until Houston launches. Like, you're asking about Saturn before we even hit mainnet on Houston.
Yeah, when Sam?
I mean, come on, give us 30 seconds. Give us 30 seconds after Houston before you ask about Saturn.
I want to give
I
it
can wait 4 minutes.
I want to shout out Patricio because Patricio has kind of embodied both aspects of this upgrade. On terms of decentralized governance, there was some years ago, Patricio sent a message that one day the world government is not going to be so happy with Ethereum and it's going to be cracking down on node operators, potentially. And in that world, Rocket Pool will have differentiated itself. Its calling card is that it genuinely stands for the decentralization first. And Houston is like the fulfillment of that goal. Or it's not the total fulfillment, but it is a concrete step in that direction. And at the same time, Patricio is also one of the largest current whale marriage partners. So yeah, thank you for everything you do for Rocket Pool, Patricio.
No worries, but I can't take credit for either. The first one, because I didn't discover anything. I was just plugged to Rocket Pool for a very long time, very closely to the developers. So I was kind of putting in easy words what the developers were building for. That's kind of a no-brainer. Like, I didn't design Rocket Pool. I only learned of it, and I then repeated it a lot. What it did different. So that's why the only credit I can take is for spreading the word. And the second one, if you knew how hard they had to force me to do that deal, you would be upset with me, actually. Like, it took a full year since the first time they told me to do that until we actually did it. And then it ended up going pretty well so far, and well, we are here now. But anyways, yeah, thank you for appreciating. I just don't feel that I am entitled to much credit, maybe a little.
Langers, did you say that you could that there was something that you could show as it goes live?
It might be a little boring. I can try. I can try.
Well, then you just tell us when it goes live.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool.
Cool. We've got 1 more minute until Houston goes live, so I'm not allowed to ask about Saturn yet.
But there's one more thing going to Houston that might be impacting users is that rewards night ratio top up won't be like, we won't be like figuring out how long we have to top up our collateral. Hopefully no one ever has to do this ever again, but we'll have a 24-hour period to know what collateral you need as well. So that's changing.
Wait, sorry, explain that one more time.
Well, maybe one of the guys can do that, but basically right now, I think the Oracle price feed for RPL ratio happens every like 27 hours, I think, or 19 hours. It's one of those two numbers. And it always changes. So some months you might only have like, 3 hours to top up your ratio if you're under collateralized. Sometimes you have like 19 hours to do it. Now with Houston, it'll be 24 hours every day. So like it's changing the way it works. It's just a life improvement for node operators.
Yeah, there's a quality of life thing where instead of using block time for these price
transaction is away, guys.
Oh, cool, awesome. Instead of using block time, we use time, so it means it's consistent, and so that's really helpful for node operators from a quality of life perspective.
Okay, I'm gonna pretend like I check my collateral percentage religiously, and like this is gonna affect me.
Hey Patches, what did you just post in chat?
That is the transaction from, I think, a wallet controlled by Kane to actually launch Houston. Sorry.
You're fired.
That was actually an accident.
It was a genuine accident too.
Executed 1 minute ago. Okay, so Houston is live. Cool. It's been 30 seconds. Can I ask about Saturn now? So tell me what's coming after this. What are we excited for next, and how, if you guys can't remember even what the last upgrade was called or when it was, how long until Saturn? Nobody wants to talk.
That's probably a question for me, but I'm just busy verifying the.
I want to hear Wax hyped up.
Give me 2 seconds. Give me 2 seconds.
Okay.
Wax,
you'll get the community. The community will tell you when it's going to be.
I can tell you. Ask me, Nick, so I can give you any answer you want.
Jasper, do you say WAC wants to answer that one? All right. The question is, how long do we expect between now and Saturn?
So Saturn's going to be coming as 2 upgrades, Saturn 1 and Saturn 2 most likely. We're still trying to figure that out within the community. Saturn 1 does not need Pectra in order to happen, whereas Saturn 2 will likely need Pectra to happen. That's the Ethereum hard fork, the next Pectra, which will probably be here in around 9 to 12 months. So
why does Saturn 2 need Pectra?
Because there's an EIP in the EIP 7002, which is the forced exits on the execution layer, and that will help us reduce the bond amounts needed from node operators, and that will go into Saturn 2 instead of Saturn 1. So with Saturn 1, The best case estimate is 6 months, and I don't think that's going to happen, sadly. Like, as much as I, trust the team to do their jobs and like the audits and testing and everything, I think that's a really ambitious timeline. Maybe 9 months. Some people in the community think maybe potentially even a year. Hopefully, it won't be that for Saturn 1. So Saturn 1 is going to bring some really, really cool things as well. So Saturn 1 will allow you to have LEB4s instead of LEB8s. It will also remove the requirement of RPL staking with your ETH. However, this is not, going to remove RPL from the protocol. It's actually going to boost RPL in the protocol in other ways instead. So we'll be getting some mechanisms of direct capture. But there's like some intricacies to that yet, still that we're still trying to figure out. But Saturn 1 is going to be really, really great. And then Saturn 2 is going to like make Rocket Pool 2.0 pretty much. So it's going to happen in 2 steps. The earliest we can see is 6 months, but I think that's too ambitious. But maybe 9 months, maybe as an outlier, maybe a year, and then maybe like 6 months, 9 months, a year after that for Saturn 2. So the best case scenario is we get all of that with Pectra. The worst case scenario is that it's 2 years from now that we get like, the final version of Saturn 2.
Oh, cool. Cool. Part of the reason why I'm so excited for Saturn is because of the dropping of the bond requirement. And I do want to ask Jasper, I know I don't love to talk about like price things on community calls, but I do feel like this has relevance because there was a technical reason for this price movement, and which there usually isn't. So
Right.
I want to ask Jasper, like what happened last week, or whenever it was, Thursday or Friday, and why does Saturn affect what happened and whether or not it'll happen again?
Right. So let me set the stage first. So as you mentioned, currently node operators have to put up an RPL bond in order to run validators. And there's a variety of ways node operators can sort of avoid having to post that bond. A popular method for doing this was to deposit RETH, Bitcoin, regular ETH into Aave, and then borrow RPL. In doing so, you have no exposure to the RPL token directly. You can run your node and then pay back your debt at any time. The downside is that you are using leverage to go market neutral. You are 1x short RPL while being 1x long RPL on your node. As such, you have to maintain a health factor, and if you don't, you can be liquidated. This is unfortunately part of what happened recently. So a couple of days ago, I believe it was Thursday night, the price started to pick up some steam on chain. Just some regular buying action happened. And then this sort of picked up pace on Binance, and suddenly the token was up 20%, and liquidation started triggering. It appears that they started on Binance first. Then from 20%, the token moved quickly to a 50% gain. And at that point, node operators who were somewhat conservative, but honestly a bit too risky in their delta neutral situation, they too got liquidated. And so we ended up having tons of forced buys because of node operators getting liquidated, people on Binance getting liquidated, and the ratio going to nearly 2x within a span of 20 minutes. There were roughly 144 or 140 node operators that were liquidated, and 175,000 RPL. So while on one hand, yay, price moving up, woo, it really sucked, honestly. This is like 140 probably home stakers who just took a haircut on staking. And with Saturn, this is all just out the window. There's no need to touch the RPL token if you don't want to. If you do want the RPL token, there's no need to take it out on leverage. So with Saturn, there should never be this situation reemerging.
Really excited to hear that, especially because I think Rocket Pool was one of our most recommended lower bond protocols until a bunch of pain started happening, and now I hesitate to tell people that because I'm like, well, I don't know what your tolerance is for like seeing things go up and down, and so I don't want to necessarily like push anybody into anything. So I'm really excited for the RPL bond requirement to go away so that I can start shilling Rocket Pool as hard as it was before.
Hey,
everything-
Kane, do you want to tell us what a mega pool is?
Yeah, I suppose I can do that. Megapools are actually a really cool upcoming feature that's been proposed. They've been talked about for quite a while now, and they become possible thanks to the beacon state route being available on the EVM now. From a high level, what they do is make it so instead of requiring a separate withdrawal credentials and therefore a separate contract address for every individual validator to be able to distinguish the capital and rewards for each validator, we can use state proofs to work out those values that we need, and that allows us to move to a single smart contract per node operator instead of single smart contract per mini pool, or per validator rather. So that comes with it a huge range of efficiency improvements for the protocol. Probably one of the biggest efficiency upgrades that the protocol will see is with megapools. So all the things like creating new mini pools, distributing funds, all those sort of things become a bulk process instead of a done on an individual validator level. So it saves a ton of gas for node operators. And if you can cut down the expenses for node operators, that's another way to increase the ROI for node operators, as well as increasing the revenue they receive. You can also reduce the expenses. So megapools is probably one of the most exciting upgrades coming to Rocket Pool in the future.
Actually, and if you reduce their costs, you can then lower the collateral as well. And you can also lower the collateral because one of the reasons why we can't lower the collateral that much is because of this thing called execution layer stealing. And with megapools, all of the funds are in one pool, one kind of bucket, and so you can actually use that if people are nefarious, then we can use that to address that issue rather than and so that it means that we can lower the bond essentially, because at the moment all of the funds are siloed, and it makes it a lot easier.
So I assume everything went okay because you're back on camera now.
Yes, I am. Yeah, I can show you. I can show you what I've been doing for the last 5 minutes. Radio silence. Okay, cool. So can you see that?
Yes. Yep.
Right. Okay, cool. So that's the smart node letting us know that Houston has launched. So there's some ASCII art in there for that. Then you've got this is a check that we do to make sure that all of the contracts actually have the new addresses. So on the left is all of the contracts that we've changed for Houston, and on the right or in the green are all the new addresses, and they're green because they match the address that we expect it to be. Then this one is just checking the settings that we've deployed are all green. In other words, they're the values that we expect them to be. And then this one is basically that the PDAL voting is not turned on yet, which is actually quite important. So the moment on launch, it's disabled because we need people to initialize their voting power. And we'll be sending out a media mask call very, very soon to show people how you do that. But we need enough quorum to initialize their voting power before we turn the PDAL system on. Otherwise, for example, WAC could decide to initialize his voting power and raise a proposal to do something, and he would be God.
He would be Rocket Pool dictator.
Yeah, he would be the Rocket Pool dictator for a small period of time. So we disable the voting system initially, and then we'll enable it once we'll monitor. We'll put out this article so that everyone knows how to initialize their voting power, and then we'll monitor that migration of the voting power. And then once we have enough voting power, then we will turn it on. So it's a little bit of a staggered kind of release for that. And then lastly, that's very, very small. That's just to say that the protocol version has gone up, which is something that Joe is quite happy with. So yeah, that's just so that we know what protocol version we're on. And there you go.
Rad. So with all those contract upgrades, is there no call to action for node operators? Do they not need to do anything?
So the new features, it says new features, the RPL withdrawal address and the stake ETH on behalf of. You don't need to use those, but you can use those if you want to. They are now live. Nick has also deployed the website changes. So there's a whole heap of website changes that we've put on the website now as well. So for example, you can do things like if you want to claim rewards from your primary withdrawal address, you can do that from the website now. If you want to set your RPL withdrawal address and all those new features, or stake ETH on behalf of your node, or stake RPL on behalf of your node, that's all on the website. I'm trying to remember some of the other features that are on the website. Yeah, there's quite a few things on the website. So we're actually kind of re-engineering the website a little bit so that it's a bit more kind of like node management focused. So look out for that. I don't know whether Nick's released that yet, but anyway, that's something that's coming as well to make it a little bit easier for node operators.
We also have a fairly detailed Medium article which we put out recently, going over everything. So if anyone wants to jump on that, just look up the Rock Pool Medium. Yeah, it's a pretty good read that goes over everything.
Cool. You can somebody post it in trading real quick. Is there, so the biggest call to action here is you're going to post a Medium article about initializing your ability to vote with the PDAO. When is that gonna happen? When should people
I think we're just editing it now, and we need to do like a title image and that sort of thing. So it'll probably be Wednesday, I would imagine. Which today is Monday for us, by the way. So because we're in the future. So it'll be your Tuesday. It'll be most of the world's Tuesday, let's say.
Okay, should we take some bets on how long it's going to take to reach quorum for everybody to initialize their voting power? I think less than a week.
You have to see, there's a few things that delegates need to do as well. So I'll put that out. So there's a bit of delegate migration. We've got some stuff to release to what we want to do is, so at the moment, Snapshot and this on-chain voting system are two separate voting systems, which is obviously not the ideal. So we've done a lot of work to figure out how we would bring them together. And we've got to release that kind of this week as well. So we've got to go through that and do that this week and let everyone know about that. But that will be in the Medium article in terms of what is to do about that. But essentially, so we're still going to have Snapshot, because Snapshot, it's very handy. It's gasless, so it doesn't cost anything for people to vote. So we're still going to use Snapshot, but then we're also going to have this on-chain voting system that will enact protocol changes, and there'll be a process how that happens. Yeah, but as I said, you'd still use the two, but there is a little bit of migration, a little bit of things you need to, as a node operator, you need to do to make sure that you're. But Snapshot will use the same system as the on-chain one for delegation and that sort of thing. So that's why I'll go into that a bit more detail.
Okay, cool. Look out for a Medium article on Tuesday night / Wednesday morning. Okay.
He's very specific.
There is a POAP for this call. Remy, do you want to give some details on that?
Sure. I just posted the message in the chat, but all you have to do is send 0.0003 ETH to ethstaker.eth, and so I also posted the actual address in the YouTube chat. You can either send it on mainnet, Optimism, Arbitrum, or Base, and you should be able to receive the POAP in about 10 minutes afterwards. That's all you have to do.
POAP released this cool. Do you want to talk about it, Patricio?
How do we complain if this doesn't work?
POAP released a new feature where you can actually just like designate an address. It's called Airship, where you can have people send a certain amount to, and if you meet that threshold, it'll automatically get your POAP to you within like 8 minutes, I think. Which I'm super happy about, because the way that we used to do it is we used to have people send it to like a designated address, and then somebody who was interning for eStaker at the time would comb through like the Dune query, use a Dune query to like see who needed a POAP, and it was a huge pain.
Has this been used before, or is this the first time someone used this?
I don't, you tell me.
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone ever used this airship system. So we hope it works. We cross fingers.
Is the ethstaker.eth address on mainnet only, or is it on any layer 2s as well?
The address that resolves on mainnet works on the other networks too, Optimism, Arbitrum, and Base.
Sweet. Yeah, mainnet, Optimism, Arbitrum, and it's also Base.
Yes, if someone didn't get it, it's the equivalent of like $1.01 or something, the amount of Ether.
Cool. While I have the team here, I have a bone to pick that I forgot about while I have all of you guys to complain to. So, StakeCat is making a list, GLC Staked made a solo stakers list that people could check. And it includes some Rocket Pool stakers, and he was telling me that it uses the withdrawal address. And I was like, oh, that's going to be a problem for Rocket Pool because the withdrawal address is actually a contract. And he was like, no, it uses the Rocket Pool withdrawal address. And I was like, why did the Rocket Pool team not call this something different? It is so confusing that they're both called the withdrawal address. So you guys
Well,
need to
actually,
rename it.
technically, it's a withdrawal credential on the beacon chain, so ours is different.
It's not me that's wrong. It's all the children. Who are
So
wrong.
many people have gotten confused over this over the years.
Cool. Well,
one thing I'm really looking forward to from Houston, theoretically, that is sort of non-financial related. This is an idea that had been floating around ETH Denver, is that we've had at Rocket Pool GMC a few college blockchain groups apply asking to get loans to run validators. Princeton Blockchain Club specifically, I believe, asked, like, hey, we want to run validators. Will you help us? And at the time, there was no trustless way for the GMC or the protocol DAO to give them assets to run without giving up custody. But with Houston, the protocol can own all the assets while the university clubs run the nodes. The university nodes could take a share of the rewards, and there's no liability on them. There's no risk to them. And so the question of transitions between different iterations of the club becomes less important because there's nothing at value to steal. So I think this is a major unlock in this sort of helping the network decentralize and expanding the number of very cool nodes we have.
very cool. Very cool. All right. Do we have anything else that we want to talk about, mention, look forward to, calls to action, info on POAPs?
Oh yeah. One thing.
Oh, sorry, what? You go.
No, please go ahead, Dave. I'll go next. That's fine.
I just want to give a huge thanks to the team just to start with, because this has been a massive undertaking, and our team punches well above their weight considering our numbers and whatnot. So absolutely massive effort. The protocol DAO was in the Rocket Pool roadmap from day one. To actually see it come to fruition 2.5 years later after launching, about 7 years after it was conceived, is just amazing. So Huge amount of thanks to everyone involved. Particularly Kane, he did an amazing job executing the technical complexity that is an on-chain DAO. Like, I can't reiterate enough how complex it is actually from a smart contract kind of point of view to actually do something like this. So to come up with a novel solution for it and execute it in code was absolutely fantastic, like really remarkable to see. And like, while it is complex, we have gone through almost 7 months worth of audits. So again, that's probably we do not put security at a second seat by any means. So we've gone absolutely to town on audits on this thing. So yeah, I started talking to auditors almost a year ago about Houston. And so, yeah, we've gone through, I mean, we've bought them a couple of boats at this point, so I hope they enjoy those. But yeah, it's been absolutely fantastic. Second massive shout out to the community. Always absolutely massive pleasure working alongside you guys. It is really kind of unique setup. I don't think I've ever seen anywhere else in the kind of blockchain space, is a team that works so closely with the community without any VCs involved or anything like that. Like, there's no VCs making the calls behind the scenes in this. It's just a hardworking team with a vision, working alongside a community that also has a very similar vision. And while we do butt heads occasionally, it's always amicable. It always comes out, good in the end. So it's just a really pleasure to kind of see this kind of community and developer relationship kind of just build over the years, and it's been an absolute pleasure to see. So yeah, again, massive thanks to everyone involved. Huge undertaking. It's not as exciting as a scaling white release like Atlas or Saturn, which everyone's kind of wants to talk about, but it is very important in kind of furthering Rocket Pool's decentralization, making sure the protocol is in good hands going forward. Sorry, you're up, Black.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. That was really well said. The one thing that I wanted to add was, as you know, and Dave's just said, Saturn is an ongoing process right now. The community and the team are working together on this. We really, really, really want more eyes on the proposals, on the suggestions, on the different tokenomic aspects. Like, we are imploring you, if you have any experience, any tokenomics work, if you are interested in governance, get involved in those discussions. Like, there's active areas that are still being discussed, and we want more people to be involved. So if you have any interest in what's happening with Saturn, please, please, please get involved with that. Those discussions are ongoing. Come by the Discord. People will point you in the right direction. And we're really happy to have more people involved, more people checking out what's going on with Saturn.
Awesome. And just two more things. eStaker at EC will be at ECC. Most of the team will be at ECC. We're curating the little staking. There's a room that's going to have staking talks in it. And it's only like, I think 6 or 7 talks, but there's going to be a quiz at the end, a fun community involvement quiz. We're going to give out prizes. And so please come, if you're going to ECC, please come. It's on day 1. Not sure where yet, but it'll be in the ECC venue. And also we're planning on putting something together for DevCon, and for DevCon, we will need help from the community because it will be about creating new node operators, getting people interested, and directing them to the right protocols. So if people want to get involved with that, they can get in touch with eStaker. Great. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us for the upgrade. This was very cool, very fun.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
It's always good to hang out. Cheers, guys.
See you next one.